I know that President Babbage promised that when we would arrive at the skating rink, that the riot act would not be read. It was read. I say we sit in non-violently, and if President Babbage wants to come and talk to us, let him come and talk to us in here.
If you go in there, you're going to provoke violence.
You're going to be putting every student on this campus in the same problem without justice behind you, and there's got to be something.
We haven't.
Stand back.
Hi, we're ready to Alan, hi.
Now it's perfectly clear that President Babbage will not let us demonstrate non-violently. And as far as I'm concerned, at this point, President Babbage is completely discredited.
For example, Bob.
Later that Tuesday, President Babbage and his aides try to measure the day's events.
If a group of people assemble in this fashion, are they subject to an order to disperse?
Generally, if this happened anywhere but a college campus, there just wouldn't be any discussion about it.
See, this it seems to me is the really critically important point to get across to our colleagues, is that we have for centuries in institutions like this enjoyed a degree of immunity from civil procedure because the assumption was made by the public that we would somehow or other govern ourselves, maintain our own form of law and order. And this included lots of gatherings and demonstrations and so forth, that the minute you call in civil authorities to maintain order on the campus, you begin to live like people live in the rest of the world, and it's not the way we want to live on a college campus.
That's what they're arguing is being infringed upon, but we're not arguing that we want them to stop their education, but don't try to stop ours, which you're doing right now. By cutting off our lifelines, by cutting off classrooms, they're stopping 13,000 other people from getting an education. It's just not right. This afternoon, the people are going to show that. I think they will. As most of you know, you have a lot of contact back home, and that's the main reason for this gathering. We want to inform a lot of the people in the state and around the nation that the University of Connecticut will not follow a small radical minority in the ruling of this campus.
Listen, you're not listening about sides.
Everybody has a chance to speak.
No, they're not. We have asked to speak. I am
Everyone has a chance to speak. This is our turn. You're allowed to go to CS meetings and speak. You never talk.
Nobody ever does anything.
Suspend those arrested.
Wait. They estimate that we have a crowd of approximately 1,200 people here. If that isn't a mandate for continuing the policies that we've had on this campus, then I don't know what is. I think we've given the news media what they've asked for today.
We believe that the majority of students at this university oppose the tactics of the minority. We wish for all to know that this minority is strictly such. They are but a handful and do not command significant support.
They put us up against the wall. They put Richie up against the wall. That we have no other alternative. There's nothing else we can do. If these professors want to hold out on grades, if you want to do this other stuff, this is fine. This doesn't do a thing for Richie. It doesn't do a thing for the movement. All we've got right now is for the strike.
Because that's what it's going to come down to. What you've got to think about, you see, is whether when they throw Rich out and me out and Colfax out and Leggett out, whether they can throw us out without throwing you out.
But I think there is an end to talking, ladies and gentlemen. I will end with this, that there were 67 people sitting there. I myself, I didn't sit there because I was afraid to lose my NDEA loan, because I have a wife and because I have kids. And this has been constant, this has been going for years. I tell you, this is the end. If it's tonight, I'm going there and they can grab me right away and I'll go very gladly.
decisiveness on the part of that individual gives me the impulse to call for a strike at this moment, to be effective on Monday.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is in favor of a student strike. All right. All those opposed? Right. All those opposed? I think it carries pretty clearly.
Some 200 activists trying to radicalize a student body of 12,000. And so for most of the campus, it is classes as usual.
Here, research is made.
And corporation recruiting as usual.
Well, you know, the Christmas holidays, as we talk right now, are only 6 days away. And to be perfectly candid with you, my hope is that we can keep the lid on until the Christmas holidays arrive. We have then 2 weeks of vacation. We have 1 more week of classes, examinations, another vacation between semesters, and hopefully in 6 weeks of a scheduled moratorium, a lot of people are going to collect their wits. Calm down. Start to think again. A little more logic, a little more argument, a little less rhetoric, a little less posturing. I'm hoping very much to keep the lid on for another week.
Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. For one quarter, we'll give you all the... We'll give you Eldridge Cleaver. We'll show you. We'll show you the books that they read. You can read all these wonderful things at our university. We present this university on your behalf, for your benefit. You pay your money, and you come in here, and you read, and you'll be able to put your head away forever. Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. Don't question.
There are strong reactions from some parents.
I don't think every parent in Connecticut is ultra-conservative. I think we want to feel that our students have a right, our children have a right to express freely their opinions. I think that's what this country is based on.
Well, actually, I'm not in favor of it.
Can you tell me why?
Yeah, I'm paying for a kid's education. I want them to get the same. And I don't want to see the disruptions that go on all the while.
What are they demonstrating against? I mean, they're going to I feel they're going to a school that's offering them an education. It's offering them advantages that most of their parents didn't have. They have a right to object to certain situations, but I don't think that forceful demonstration is a means to an end.
Can't see it. Can't see it? No, sir. Can you tell me why? Why? Yeah. Well, I think you're up here for an education, right? Yeah. So what's the purpose of the strike? I see. Well, do you approve of this, the educational system here? Well, I don't know yet. I see. I'll let you know in a year.
As part of the strike strategy, SDS members address various classes to explain their point of view. Student Ed Van.
So we thought it was important, more important for us, to point out to people that Dow, and not just Dow, but all the corporations in America, participate in a system that is oppressing people around the world and oppressing people right here in America. And I'm talking about people like the blacks and the migrant workers, the miners in the South. I saw some of those miners this summer, and they're living in miserable conditions. We said, sure, we're interrupting their civil liberties, their civil privilege to have an interview, but this country is interrupting the civil rights of people in Vietnam to live, to have an existence. And we thought that that was more important than someone's civil liberty to have an interview. But if we were in a society that was moral, if we were in a society where all people had civil rights and civil liberties, if we were in a world where all people had civil liberties, then I would say nobody should violate your civil liberties at all. But when you're living in a society that's corrupt, that's amoral, that exists to make profit, that puts one man against another man and calls it motivation, then there's no right to respect one type of civil liberties. People like to call us communists and say we're a bunch of reds, because then they don't have to deal with our politics. You see, that just can't, you know, they call umpires communists too. Then they don't have to deal with us if they just say you're communist. But the communists are not the people to be worried about in this world right now, because the communists are just another form of imperialism. The communists are imperialists just like the United States are imperialists. There are varying degrees and varying types of communism. Communism in Vietnam may be totally different, and will be, I can assure you, totally different than communism in Russia, okay? So we're not for the communists taking over the world. But what I'm saying is that the United States and Russia are in this conflict, and they're screwing everybody in the world because of this conflict, just to help their own countries, to help themselves. And not even their countries, to help an elite in that country.
You seem to think that everyone who goes through high school and then doesn't join SDS doesn't read books or something.
No, that's not true, because I went through high school,
it's not
too,
true.
You know?
I think for myself. I don't get these opinions because some teacher told me they were supposed to be my opinion.
What you're saying right now shows me that you're ignorant of what it means to be socialized, to be put into a system. You see, the system has affected me. It's warped a lot of my thinking. It's created a lot of anxieties in me. There's certain things I can't do, you know, like I don't like to say certain words because it makes me turn red every once in a while, you know, and things like that. The thing you have to try to do is first recognize that it doesn't matter what society you live in. That society determines your morality, what you think, you know, the ideas that you're brought up with all your life. The time is now, man. The time is now to say, well, maybe some of those things aren't right, you know, and let's look around and see what the truth is.
My sympathy for the strike, I'm not going to have a class on Wednesday. There will be no class on Wednesday.
Let's get one thing straight before we go in there. Are we going to go in there and leave when they ask us to leave, or are we going to go in there and
No, we're going to go in there. We're going to sit down and just sit down and stay there.
Okay. Now, some of those people that were doing the talking, do it today. You know, do it now. All right, let's go.
Yeah, don't let him shout you out. Keep walking.
We're here to tell you about what's going on and to tell you some of you may not like SDS.
The problem is that the university has decided that anyone who's going to use their right to freedom of speech is going to get bumped out of school, you see.
Well, that's your interpretation of it. Just get out of here. Get out of here. We don't want you around here. Go on down the street out there.
We don't have our
Go down the street out there.
guaranteed.
Why wasn't he getting kicked out?
You're not giving us a choice.
How can you call yourself a student? You know what a student is? I decide what courses I want to take. That's my right. Therefore, I decide also that we don't want you here, so just get out.
We're going to have tea about what's been going on and what's been happening to our people, because the news that's been coming out has been distorted. And it's
Sir, let me point out to you that before coming to this class, I read 13 pages of what you put out. And I therefore feel myself quite well informed. I think most students have received this or similar information.
Why don't you ask them how many you've read it? This isn't a time or a place.
All right.
Yeah. When people were being taken out of their jobs, that you have very little choice over who you're going to listen to and who you're going to be taught by. That's one of the things we're trying to say.
All right, then please leave, because maybe I don't even want to listen to it.
Not a question, but I'm a senior and I'm using the placement office, and I want to know why you think you have the right to interfere in my getting to a placement interview.
I wouldn't allow a Ku Klux Klan meeting to go on in my house in Enfield from where I live. You know, I feel as long as you let it happen in your own home, then that's kind of a way of condoning it. The same thing if you allowed wiretapping. You know, it's just you're condoning the idea. And I feel, you know, sure, kids want to recruit, but if they want to, get off campus. You know, this is my home, just like it's your home, and I don't feel that you should infringe on certain of those happenings.
Well,
yes.
Why should you have them off? That's for you. Why can't I have them on? That's for me.
See, this is the whole compromise. That's the only answer.
So I'm supposed to compromise.
Well, no law is just if it affects a majority while a minority is still impaired. You can't infringe on some people's rights. They have to appeal to everyone.
It makes it right if the majority is infringed upon for the minority's will.
No, they wouldn't be infringed. I'm not stopping their recruiting. A half a mile off campus isn't that much. It's just that I want recruiting out of my house.
Well, I live here too. I want it in my house.
By Tuesday, the 9th day of the revolution, the strike collapses.
And I think, like, if we start demanding things like 1,000 black students before next year, and 500 Puerto Rican students as opposed to the 4 we have now, we not only we have 4, and we not only have like a real issue that appeals to everybody.
The important thing to point out is where his interests are.
Right.
See, it's not enough to see Babbage, you know, the man, the father figure, right? You've got to point to the fact that he sits on 5 corporation boards of directors, including Cayman Industries, et cetera, Hartford National Bank, which has an interlocking directorate with United Aircraft. That's the kind of stuff we have to hit. We've got to build. It seems what we ought to be doing is building anti-capitalist content into this popular.
Finally, revolution gives way to Christmas recess.
If it wasn't for my parents at this particular time, and though sometimes I fail to express this to them, I probably would have really gotten keeled over. Not only just in the material sense, but just in terms of support, because I know a lot of kids right now are so-called, as the psychiatrist would say, alienated from their parents, you know, mad with their parents. A lot of the kids up here have had a lot of hassles with their parents, you know, cut off funds, we don't want to see you, don't do that again. But I've gotten great support. In fact, I went to Babbage and spoke to him in my behalf.
My father's dead. My mother kind of just wants me to make it, should we say, and she realizes I'm not going to make it this way. She realizes things are wrong, but she's like first generation. She feels that America's, you know, with even its faults, is still like the best place on earth, and that whole bag. So she's, you know, worried about a lot of things too. She's worried I'm not going to get through with school, which you know, is her dream, that, you know, all her boys go to college and become doctors, I guess.
Part of being a man, you know, in 1969, I think, in America is to be able to take some risks. And I don't feel the risk is, you know, is so great when measured against the kinds of crime being committed by this country, the kinds of exploitation of people all over the world. You know, you measure it against, say, the abscesses in the face of a napalm child.
The deeper you get in, the more you realize that the system is not going to bend. It's not flexible. It will only, you know, bend to a certain point, and then it comes down hard. And so I think you're not going to accomplish it through the ballot box. And you're not going to accomplish it through changing people's minds for the even very simple reason you don't have access to their minds. Through the media, through just talking to them. They're not interested. So I guess you know, sad to say, you pick up a gun and start changing it.
You know, I hate to think that democracy is a failure. I can't bring myself to believe it. I think we just have to work a hell of a lot harder at it than we've been inclined to in the past. I think we've taken it for granted that we had such a stable, such a sensible form of government that nobody in his right mind was going to set out to destroy it.
But when we came in September, the kids on this campus thought that Homer Babbage was, you know, kind of, he was there and was in power because of his human relations techniques, of course. And then they bring on 200 state police, you know, onto the campus. And it turns out that what he's propped up by is power.
I must compromise at times. I must take into account a wide range of opinions in trying to represent the best interests of the institution. That to impose upon the institution my own personal convictions would be dishonest. Well, worse than that, it would be, I shouldn't have said dishonest. Imposing my own personal views on this institution and its policies would be an act of arrogance